Okay, I would like to start off my talk by acknowledging the reason my mom got an Instagram account. She got it so she could see what me and my sisters were posting online. And I think this signifies a greater trend that we see among adults in the world today. They want to know what the kids are up to. And I'd like to say that we're doing pretty all right for ourselves. We're changing the world movement by movement, tweet by tweet, hashtag by hashtag, and Instagram post by Instagram post. Social media is one of the best tools we can use to fight a global crisis like the climate crisis. It's accessible, inclusive, and it builds empathy and ethics among social movements. To touch on accessibility for a moment, a study done by the Pew Research Center in 2018 found that 95% of teenagers had a smartphone, that 72% of them had an Instagram account, and that 60% of them had a Twitter account. This shows that social media's largest base is teenagers and young adults. Furthermore, it shows that it's one of the most accessible platforms for teenagers to talk to other teenagers. And this is at a time when youth voices have been shut out of the conversation. When discussing social media, it's important to touch on the idea of intersectionality. It's this idea of different groups interacting across age groups, gender, race, and class. When talking about environmental justice and environmental policy, it's important to talk about three subgroups: age, class, and race. In terms of age, my generation is expected to be one of the generations hit hardest by climate change. Furthermore, we're expected to be the group that fixes the problem that older generations created. But how are we supposed to change the problem when we aren't listened to by the older generations? When talking about race and class, it's extremely important that we highlight the issues of environmental racism and classism that are present across the US and the world. One young teenager in Flint, Michigan has been facing this problem head on. She goes by the name of Little Miss Flint on her Instagram and Twitter, and she's documenting the fact that her community has no access to clean and safe drinking water. Flint, Michigan is a largely minority-populated town, and the issue of environmental racism is extremely prevalent. Furthermore, Indigenous groups and groups that are attacking healthcare issues associated with climate crisis, such as the Cancer Alley in Louisiana, are voicing their concerns as well. More recently, we've seen similar concerns spoken up about the Australia fires affecting Indigenous communities. Ultimately, intersectionality allows social media to bring in a broad source of perspectives, not just allowing us to think locally, but forcing us to think and act globally. Furthermore, social media allows these movements to be as replicable as possible. The hashtag Fridays for Future movement, started by Greta Thunberg, is now in 6,000 cities and 219 countries. The movement was started by and for social media, and it's started by and for youth activists. It has grown into one of the largest climate activist movements in the world, and it's shown that climate activists care about the power of their own voices, and youth activists aren't giving it up. I'd like to focus on a case study for the moment in Colorado. 16 and 17-year-olds are allowed to pre-register to vote, but they aren't able to do so on online registration. Online registration is open up to only 18-year-olds and older. This oversight of 16 and 17-year-olds exercising their political power on one of the mediums we use most often, the internet, proves that we've been disenfranchised and not given appropriate access to the tools of our political power. Now I'm going to go into a few examples of Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts that I've grown inspiration from and have led me to want to give this talk. The climate movement Extinction Rebellion has grown by over 6,000 members following 2 weeks of climate protests in 2019. Similarly, the Sunrise Movement, which is the largest climate activist group in the US, gained 10,000 followers after those global weeks of climate protests in 2019. Those protests were led by and for youth activists, and they continue to be growing today and in the future. Furthermore, there are 2 climate activists local in Colorado who have been on the forefront of the issue. Haven Coleman started the hashtag Fridays for Future movement in Denver, and Marlo Baines has been leading Colorado climate protests across the state and has been working at the national level as well. These 2 have been documenting their progress both in protest and organizing, and have not only made me more informed in the climate protest movement, but others as well. As I leave my talk, I would like to say thank you for listening to my voice. But I urge you to remember that there are a million more voices to listen to across the world. And if it's too hard for you to listen to all the kids in the world, I urge you to at least listen to the ones in your own home. Thank you.